and we'll start our second part of this concurrent session, number 2. Thank our sponsors again, and thanks all for coming here again. Our speaker is Paul Kostboth. Kostboth founded A1 Development Solutions in April 2017 out of the recognition of a need for a full A to Z service provider that can get projects through the multiple challenges which come with development from initial site identification all the way through the permitting process. His topic title is Best Practices in Siting New Hog Barns, Perspective versus Reality.
Good afternoon, everybody. Again, my name is Paul Kostboth. I am from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, owner of A1 Development Solutions, which I'll talk a little bit about today. As Q mentioned, we're just going to talk a little bit about some of our experiences, my experiences, and some of the challenges that come with development, the joys of it when we're trying to get barns sited, sow facilities, finishers, nurseries, dairies, poultry, you name it. In South Dakota, we maybe have some unique challenges compared to, say, Iowa, just from a standpoint of we're a local control state. So before you can even get to the state level of permitting with DNR, first you got to get through the county level, and that's where things a lot of times go off the rails and projects get lost. And it's happened for a lot of years, unfortunately. Most folks in the industry kind of look at South Dakota, or have historically looked at South Dakota as kind of closed for business, unfortunately. And that's what we've been working to change. So I'll give you a little bit of my background. Grew up on a small farm just west of Sioux Falls, about 25, 30 miles. After graduating high school, went to Dakota State University, ended up with a finance degree. I went in thinking that I wanted to do computer science because I thought computers were cool. It took me about 6 months to figure out that was not at all for me. Once graduated college, went out to Pierre, which is our state capital, and then spent a little over 15 years in state government, first working in affordable housing, running a few different programs, and then the last 5.5 years, I served as the Director of Ag Development for the state before leaving in May of 2017 and starting A1 Development Solutions. And really what our company is, well, I should back up. I started it with a partner of mine, Mark Mickelson. He's a legislator there, currently Speaker of the House. We got to be friends over the years, trying to pass legislation, writing and passing legislation that pertained to local control and zoning and permitting and trying to get things done that were supportive to agriculture. Through that time, he became really passionate about ag-related development as well. And we got together one day and I told him what I was planning to do, and in the end, we decided to partner up and do it together. So what it is really an extension of what I tried to do as a Director of Ag Development for the state. And as was referenced in the intro, really a full A to Z service is what I always refer to it to, that we set out to provide. You know, my job technically in that role was recruit and promote, bring development into the state or spur development from within the state. But we never wanted to stop there. We always wanted to take that relationship we'd built with the company and then help them get through the process. We didn't want to walk away when the real work began. That's when we really wanted to dig in and work with them. Problem was, in our state role, it just didn't work. In all my stubbornness and as much as I fought it, said, dang it, it's the right thing to do, we're going to do it. Eventually, over time, I accepted that to really do it right, somebody was going to have to leave that state role of recruit, promote, and actually be there in the private industry side and available to work with the companies after they've made the commitment. The way I explained it to the governor when I was getting ready to leave, I said, you know, I think we as a state have gotten really good from, say, A to R in the process, but then we run out of pavement and we're spinning our wheels. And so my goal here is to finish that, get us to the end of what we tried to start. And then also, I've served 2.5 years on the Planning and Zoning Commission for Minnehaha County, which is where Sioux Falls is. So I've sat on both sides of the table, so to speak, and got to go through all of this permitting fun. With that, just some of the things I want to go over here quick today. We've all heard a bunch of acronyms. I thought it'd be fun to go through some of them, see how many everybody knows. Maybe there'll be some new ones in there you haven't heard. And then I want to talk a little bit about kind of how they come together. To me, they kind of paint the picture of where we were and where we've come when it comes to the anti-side, I guess I'd say. Perspectives, I'm going to talk about that. You know, a lot of the things that I'm going to cover, I think most likely will just sound like kind of common sense stuff to most of the folks in the room, and you may wonder what's new in this. We all know this stuff. What I would suggest is that we do probably recognize it. Where a lot of it gets lost is when we get in the heat of battle when it comes to trying to get a project done, and we're fully immersed in one, and we start getting this pushback from out of nowhere, and the fighting starts, and everything goes awry, and it's too late once it goes. So the challenge is trying to maintain that basic knowledge, or just realizing those basic things and trying to not lose sight of that when it does start getting contentious, because that's when it's difficult. Pro-environment versus anti-CAFO. I'll talk about what I mean there and where I've come to feel that there is a pretty significant difference there, and how we can use that in our favor for trying to get development moving forward and having decent conversations with people, even if they are flat out opposed to projects. And then kind of try to wrap that all up in some best practices. And again, probably a lot of that's just common sense stuff, but I think it never hurts to reiterate, and hopefully it'll spur some thoughts. And then I want to make sure we save some time for questions as well. And I'm not a formal person at all, as you'll see. I don't have notes here. We'll just kind of make this up as we go. So feel free, any questions, comments, anything along the way, please just go ahead and interject, and we can just have a conversation, see where we go. So acronyms. We've all heard a lot. We've all heard this one, right? NIMBY, not in my backyard. Everybody knows that one, and we see it all the time. And I know there's some folks in here, probably the younger side, that haven't been through permitting yet. I see some haircuts similar to mine in here. That suggests you've been through permitting in the past, because you'll pull it out if it won't fall out. NIMBY, not in anyone's backyard. Maybe you've heard that one. Note, not over there either. Has everybody heard all of these? One of my personal favorites, CAVE, Citizens Against Virtually Everything. And one that I just learned recently here that's quickly becoming my favorite, banana. Build absolutely nothing anywhere near anything. So, I think the thing to point out with these, and they're always fun, is if you really look at it, you start with NIMBY. That is kind of where it all started. Not in my backyard. Hey, I'm all for whatever you're doing. You think back a number of years, for those that have been in it a while, just don't put it in my backyard. Other than that, boy, have at it. Well, then all of a sudden, you know what? You really shouldn't put it in anybody's backyard. I don't want it. Just go put it out in remote Timbuktu where nobody will see it, then it's great. Then we love it. Well, then it's not over there either. Maybe we just don't want it at all. And then if you think about it, the next, when you get into CAVE and people go bananas, that one person that was against it, now it's a group. And there's strength in numbers, right? And people feed off of each other. And the next thing you know, you've got a group of folks that it's all of those things wrapped into one, and people feeding off each other. And that's also when the group forms, that's also when there gets to be a lot more money when just a few people throw it into the pot. Well, then the professional activists come in, and they really get the crowd riled up. And then they'll bring in an attorney that's their best friend that will gladly take a whole bunch of their money to start suing like mad and sue everybody under the sun to try to stop a project, the old death by delay tactic, which is really all it comes down to. Those are the things we want to avoid. But when you go through it, if you think about it, it really isn't just CAFOs. And when I was putting this together, I just thought of, well, what are some of the things that I've ran through just in the last couple years, whether it's on the P&Z Commission or on the other side of it. Seriously, affordable housing, water towers, cell towers, wind towers, solar panels, processing, gravel pits, housing developments, and the list goes on. These are things I've seen people go bananas over. And it's amazing to me, some of the things we've seen on the P&Z Commission. Probably the worst I've seen is over a water tower. A water tower, of all things. And man, did they have people riled up, and it was ridiculous. So, keep moving along here on perspectives. A little bit of a shift, but the thing I try to remind folks of and remind myself of when I'm getting into these projects, not everyone is kept up with what modern agriculture is. and modern anything for that matter. Let's just think about how much everything has evolved in the past number of years and what technology has done really across the world in all industries, but especially when you get into agriculture. And in today's world, it's hard to keep up. I mean, even for the ones that are doing it, technology is changing so fast in what works and best practices and everything else. And so if you stop and think about it a little bit, for those that maybe are just now really in agriculture, you've grown up in modern agriculture and what you're learning about, whether it's in school or from the current generation, is today's practices and also looking at what tomorrow's practices are. And for the folks that have been in this, maybe trying to site barns for a lot of years and grow their operation, they've evolved with the industry, you kind of lose sight of how drastically things actually have changed. So just imagine if you've been completely removed from agriculture, especially livestock production, for the last 10, 20, 30 years. And just to put it into pictures, some thoughts on that. You know, if you're talking to somebody about going out and planting a certain number of acres and about how long it's going to take, you might be talking about that for equipment. But if the person you're talking to is picturing that, because that's the last time they dealt with it, saw it, or what they remember Grandpa having out on the farm and they haven't seen anything since, they might think that sounds a little bit unrealistic, that you could do it. And they're right if you were still using that. Now you're going to harvest it. Same thing, you might be talking this, they might be picturing that. Well, now all of a sudden, they're picturing something that they're going to spend as much time working on as they are operating it. There's no way you're going to get everything done. So there's a huge gap in perspective there. So if we move to livestock, if you're talking about a 5,000 head dairy, which we've worked with a number of, if you're familiar with a 5,000 head dairy and you're picturing how do we milk all of those cows 2 to 3 times a day, and you're telling somebody this is what you do and this is how it works, and you're picturing that carousel and how it works and the employees and the flow and the system and all the technology involved, it's no big deal, right? Well, if they're still picturing the 3 boys, or boys and the girls, and mom and dad having to milk cows, and that's the last they ever saw, and that's what they know of how milking cows works, kind of an extreme example, but makes the point, they're going to think you're probably out of your mind at this point. 5,000 cows can't be done. Nobody's ever had that many kids. How could you do it? So then we get into hogs. Same thing. You might be talking about putting up a 2,400 head hog barn. Now in South Dakota, unfortunately, they've been hard to come by because South Dakota, again, is known for being pretty resistant to just about everything. And you don't just see hog barns everywhere like you do. Well, I cut through Sioux County on the way down here today. I saw more hog barns than I did houses, and I love it. It's exciting. You just don't get to see that in South Dakota. But even the folks that see them from the outside, it was mentioned by the previous speaker, doesn't mean they have any idea what's going on inside. It's not what it used to be, even if you drive by these every day. So you're talking about 2,400 head barn, you're coming into an area where they haven't seen one, they're not familiar with it, and you're talking 2,400 head. Well, if they're picturing this with you, that's probably not a big deal. Makes sense, you know how it's run, the automated side, and what it takes each day to run it, and the cleanliness, the biosecurity, the health of the pigs, all that stuff. It's all good stuff. But if they're picturing that, if that's the last time they saw pigs in a barn, and that's what raising pigs means to them, then what they're left having to do, if their perspective is kind of frozen in time from 30, 40 years ago, growing up on the farm, or again, seeing Grandma and Grandpa's farm, they have to take that times, 50, maybe 100 in their mind to picture what you're talking about at 2,400 head. That's 50 or 100 times the stink and 50 or 100 times the flies. All of that slop's got to run somewhere. That's going to go to the creek eventually. Now we're destroying the water. You know, all these things that people hear all the time and on the resistance side. And if you just try to think about what you're dealing with and maybe where their perspective could be coming from and how familiar what you're offering to do might be to them, it becomes a little easier to understand maybe where the resistance just comes from right off the bat. Because, boy, it does happen quick if you talk to the wrong person, right? If you've been through it, you talk to somebody about what you're going to do and boom, and they're on you. So my advice to folks is just try to remember, not everybody's talking about the same thing. There's been a lot of things that have changed in the past decades, and if they haven't come along with it like you have, they really don't have any idea what you're talking about. So moving along, pro-environment versus anti-CAFO, kind of along the lines of perspectives, but a little different. None of us all fit into the same category, and my point there is, if you think about it on the agriculture side, we often get lumped into this big ag, big money, corporate, which means if we're pro that, if you're pro CAFO, then you're just anti-small farm, you're anti-environment, you don't care about anything, just big and run everybody else out. That's what we get accused of, and that's frustrating. This couldn't be farther from the truth. Doesn't really make any sense, but we get lumped into the same category. Well, I think on the flip side, we in agriculture have been a little bit guilty of the same thing, and I'll explain what I mean in a story. I got asked to come meet with a gentleman by the name of Dana Lowski about 3.5, 4 years ago. He's the director of the Big Sioux, or Friends of the Big Sioux River is the name of the group. And the Big Sioux River is one of the main, it is kind of the main river on the eastern part of South Dakota, runs right through Sioux Falls, really important river. And as the name would suggest, this group's mission is to preserve the water going in that river, recreation and all the other uses. And of course, naturally, it's always agriculture that gets the blame first when they are seeing elevations of anything. The agriculture gets blamed for it. And so I'm asked by a mutual acquaintance, hey, I think you should meet this guy. Let's go do lunch. And I thought, okay, here we go. I know what this will be. I'll meet him. And he'll tell me why everything that I promote, big ag, I was in ag development at the time yet, is destroying the world, and everything is wrong, and these aren't regulated, and it's all our fault. The river's turning in, they're getting worse, losing quality. And I'm going to tell him he's wrong, as nice as I can, and I'm going to try to explain how these really work, and we're not going to get anywhere. Hopefully in the end, we'll at least be able to shake hands and have gotten a free lunch out of the deal, but it won't go anywhere, and we'll go on our separate ways. And to my surprise, Dana was very open to learn. He did come in with that mentality, which he'll admit, and just like I came in with that mentality, he thought, well, this won't go anywhere. Director of Ag Development, all he's doing is pushing big ag. He doesn't care about anything else. It's all about money. And since that time, Dana and I would say, have become friends. We've spent a lot of time together. We've learned a lot from each other. And we're to a point now, over the past year and a half, I'd say Dana has probably gone in front of 4 or 5 different public bodies, including permit hearings for CAFOs, and said, hey folks, if we're serious about protecting the environment and not having the manure running into the water and everything else, this is the best thing we can be doing. The best thing we can do is have these barns that are fully contained, and the manure is run through a management plan and injected in the soils. So he gets it. And what I'm getting to there is he's pro-environment. That's what he's really after, is what can we do to protect the waters. So Dana asks me to come and speak to his group, Friends of the Big Sioux, and I thought, well, this is a buzzsaw. So I agreed, of course, because I don't know any better. And I just said, well, Dana, what can I possibly talk about that this isn't just going to get ugly? And he said, well, I'll do my best to try to keep it from a complete bloodbath. And I thought, well, that's nice, thanks. And Dana is also a member of Sierra Club, which everybody I'm sure has heard of, which lowered my expectations for him even that much more when we first met, being honest. And then there's another group there that they all are kind of in the same circle, so getting to my point of lumping folks together, called Dakota Rural Action. And they as a group are very much pro small family farm, organic farming. That's kind of their thing. They do not like CAFOs, and they do a lot of work to stop them. And anytime we tried to pass legislation in the years past, as I mentioned, they were the ones up there beating the drums against it every single time, without fail. So all of those folks were in the room. There was probably about 40, I suppose. And the thing I had learned really from Dana and all the time I'd spent with him is, in my opinion, this difference. And so when I was going to talk to the group, I just started out with, hey, we often feel you unfairly lump us in one category. as I mentioned. And yet at the same time, I've come to realize I think we've probably unfairly done the same to you folks. Let's say how this room is split. That one was kind of that way too. Rural Action and those folks were over here, and Dana and some of the other really, truly pro-water folks on the other side. And I said, you know, I think in the end what we've really got here is two different groups coming at this from two different ways. We all call you anti-CAFO because we go into site a dairy, a hog barn, a poultry barn, you name it, and you're on the attack, and you're trying to get the project stopped. So we just say you're anti-CAFO. But I think there's a difference. There's the folks that are truly pro-environment, like I've talked about, Dana, that they just want to protect the waters, and they want to know that everybody's doing their part to do so. Other than that, have at it. And then there's people that are philosophically against CAFOs, Dakota Rural Action. Very much philosophically against CAFOs because they are convinced that if you're doing a CAFO, then you're anti-environment for one, but for sure you're anti-small farm. You're anti-family farm because big CAFO to them means corporate greed. You want to wipe everybody else out. And so I just made the point to the group right off the bat. I said, you know, if you're philosophically against CAFOs, that's okay. You know, we could all sit here and wish the 1950s back and what the family farms looked like then and how they were sprinkled around the countryside. And there was the 3-4 kids that, you know, they all did the livestock chores and everything else. That's what I grew up on. We can all wish that back, but in the end, we can't control it. I can't control big ag any more than you can control small ag. We can't force that back. That's economics. That's for each producer to decide on their own, each family to decide on their own what's right for them. So why do we fight about it? If it's a philosophical feeling on CAFOs, there really isn't anything to fight about because we can't control it. On the flip side, if you're pro-environment and you're just concerned about water quality, no matter what it is or what the activity is, we've got all kinds of stuff in common then. Because if you think about water quality, you think about our livestock facilities, and these are our livelihood, we need quality water just as bad as you do, maybe even worse. It's our families using the water, it's our livestock using that water. We have as much interest as you do in protecting our natural resources. And what I saw happen in the room when I talked about that to the group, because there was 4 or 5 of them there that, I mean, I could just see they were just gritting their teeth ready to get after me when this whole thing started. And it got through all of that, and in the end we get to questions. In the Dakota Rural Action Group, they had one question for me, and that was, hey, what are we going to do about all this tiling of fields? That was it. There was nothing about CAFOs, and that's what I was brought there to talk about, of course. And they didn't go on the attack. It didn't turn into this big fist-pumping and chest-bumping argument. It was a calm, good discussion we got to have. I got to spend quite a bit of time talking on the pro-environment side, the stuff that we can focus on, and how we actually run these projects and how these facilities work. And so I felt it was really productive. So my point there is, in my opinion anyway, there is a difference. And depending on what group you're talking to, it's a whole different conversation. And so the trick is figuring out, well, who are you talking to when you get into the opposition and the questions and the concerns over what you're proposing to do. It's kind of a know your audience sort of thing, I guess you could say. And again, pro one thing is not necessarily anti another. And I think that goes both ways. So if we talk best practices, you know, here I think this is all common sense. Be proactive. And everything I've got there follows under be proactive. It really comes down to being proactive. And the speaker before me had mentioned it too. Don't let somebody else go tell your story for you. If you're looking to bring a project to an area that's not familiar with it, or they're not familiar with you, either one, you can just bet. You're guaranteed they're going to be talking about it. It'll be at the coffee shop, it'll be at the Friday night game, and it'll be after church on Sunday. The local community is going to be talking about what you're looking to do. And if they don't know you and they don't know the project, it's not going to be good. It's going to be negative, or they're not going to talk about it. So you want to be the one that tells your story. And the only way you can do that is you be out there telling it. Now you have to be strategic. You got to be careful about where you're going and at what speed you're going in there. You know, you don't necessarily want to just say, hey, we're going to hold a public meeting to talk about this barn that I want to do, because those will go off the rail in a hurry. But you got to start meeting the right local folks if you're not local. You got to be talking to those neighbors of yours who do get it, that you do have a relationship and trust level with, that will be a supporter of what you're trying to do, and build out a little bit of base of support. Then you can get more public as you go, but you got to be the one out there telling your story. Somebody else does it. That snowball gets in front of you, it can become pretty much impossible to catch. And you know, at that point, my advice to anybody we work with is, let's not get so married to a site that we can't walk away. Because if once it goes off the rails, you just need to be prepared to either walk away or be ready to be in court for 12 to 18 months, because they can tie it up that long easy, especially if they've got the bananas folks that all write a few $1,000 check to the attorney. They can tie it up a long time. Anticipate challenges and identify solutions. You know, really, in all the projects I've helped with of all sizes, you really come down to kind of the same things. The stink, the flies, and roads. What's it going to do to roads? What kind of employment are you going to bring in? What kind of people are you going to hire? It's those things that it comes up all the time. You're going to kill my property values. So if you know that's what you're going to be facing, have answers before you get into a room or a group and they start pounding on you with that. Because if you hesitate and don't have an answer, now they've got you. And then it immediately goes to, well, you don't have an answer because you don't care. Well, then what else don't you care about? And if you don't talk to them in advance, the first time they hear about you, like in our case, the public permit hearing that you have to go through at the local level, if they haven't heard from you before that permit hearing, then that means you've got something to hide, right? Because you must be hiding from me. So that means you have something to hide, which means you're here to do something bad. You were trying to sneak in. Well, once they get that in their minds, well, then that's the end of it there too. There's really no going back. You can't answer those questions and resolve those problems at a permit hearing, because people are there to fight for or against at that point. It's a little late. So the other challenge is roads. Just helped a dairy family get a dairy permitted in a county that's had some pretty ugly fights the past few years. About 2 weeks ago we got it done. And when we went in there, the beauty of being the first one to get to speak at a permit hearing like that, we got to head off what we know would have been some of those claims. This is on a mile of township road. The townships have no money. The road is not equipped to handle the level of dairy trucks or the milk trucks that are going to be coming and going every day, feeding everything else. So we came in with a solution of how the road is going to be built up in advance, how it'll be maintained, and who's going to pay for it. It's those types of things. You anticipate what's coming, have the solutions in place before you try to really get out there and go for it. We had some neighbors that have nothing to gain from it in their minds. They don't own land around there to get the manure that's talking about the dairy yet. All they're going to gain is traffic, and in their minds stink and flies most likely, and the property value is going to go down. Well, what we did in that case is we went to them, told them about the dairy, introduced them to the family, went and toured another dairy. That all makes a big difference. And then in the end we said, we'll come in, if the permit is granted, we'll come in and do an appraisal on your property as it stands today, and then we'll guarantee your price your value doesn't go down from there. It's not going to decline. The only request and response is if you do decide to sell, the dairy gets first right to buy it. We know the price isn't, or the value is not going to go down. It's not going to happen. The dairy is probably going to want to buy it if they do decide to sell anyway for employee housing, but it's such minimal risk and hardly any expense going in. And what we had done there, if nothing else, is put ourselves in a position that if that neighbor would have came into the permit hearing and tried to raise all kinds of trouble and get this denied, saying my property value is going to decline, they'd have looked pretty silly when we said, well, we're going to get it appraised and we already guaranteed them it'll never go down, and we'll put it in writing. It kills the argument. So those are the types of examples I guess I'd refer to. Make sure I give us some time here. And in the end, it's not what you know, it's what they know, and that goes back to the perspective and everything else. I think it's just really important to always be thinking about, what does a person I'm trying to educate know? What are they picturing? Because it might not be anywhere remotely close to what you're trying to explain, and if that's the case, you've got a huge gap right off the bat, and it's hard to get anywhere to get them to envision what you're explaining. And then you got to take a different approach. You got to offer to let them see one. You at least got to show them pictures. You got to really get detailed in how it works and what goes on. You got to really start at a 101 level if that's the case. So to kind of end, I guess the question keeps coming down to, what do they know? Well, we know what we know where our bacon comes from, right? We're talking about hogs. We know darn well where our bacon comes from, but we got to remember there's a lot of folks out there that know where their bacon comes from too. And the ones that have never been on a farm or haven't been there for decades, as sad as it is and as crazy as it may sound, there are a lot of people out there that they're pretty sure that's where their bacon comes from. And beyond that, they don't care how else it gets there. And they don't want to think about it. And then you get back to them not wanting their backyard. What do they need it for? They already know where they can get it. So I will stop there. Any questions, comments? We got a few minutes. Love to have some discussion. Yes, sir.
Some of the tactics that you use against the professional activists. The activists, they don't offer any solution. They're just there to cook.
Man, those are the ones that infuriate me. Those because they come in and what they do is they prey on the locals. They prey on our neighbors and our local citizens, and it's extremely frustrating. The only real trick to them is you build up that base, that level of support locally where the door doesn't even get open for them. And I could give you an example of that on my wife's stepdad's farm, also west Sioux Falls. Kostboth is a town. My wife and I grew up there together. And his farm and my family's farm about 1.5 miles apart. And we were going to do some hog barns. Well, that evolved into, Jeff is my wife's stepdad's name. I said, man, you got a great site here. I think we should do more than hog barns. There should be a sow facility or something. Let's bring some jobs to the area, big investment, opportunities for neighbors as well, getting manure and the whole works. So in the end, we ended up working with pipestone systems on the facility. We said, we'll go get it permitted. We want to get this permitted our way. It's a local thing. We want to make sure this is done what we would say right. And so we went around and we talked to neighbors, and it was about 4 months of educating, and we knew there were some that were dead set against this kind of stuff. My dad is one of them. He's the most anti-guy I've ever met. It's ridiculous. And thankfully, Dad recognized this was one he should probably just stay quiet on, stay out of. It still took a lot of talk, and man, it was killing him to not try to go get the neighbors fired up, because he doesn't understand it. He doesn't get it. He thinks it's crazy. So we went around, we spent time talking to all the neighbors. There was a couple of the neighbors we had to have 4 one-on-one meetings with before we could get them to say, you know what, I still don't really like it. It's just too dang big, but I'm not going to stand in your way. I get what you're trying to do and why. I can appreciate that, and I'm not going to get in the way. Well, that's all you really need to get. You don't need to get everybody on board. You're never going to get everybody excited about something, but if you can get them to just say, you know what, I can live with it. And we went to the permit hearing, and you can bet it could have gotten ugly if we wouldn't have done that. It would have gotten ugly had we not spent the time that we did, because there was a number of those folks that they just love a good fight, if nothing else. And in the end, it was about a 15-minute hearing. I think there was 4 of us that spoke for it. Not a single person spoke against it. We got the permit, and that was it. And so that was a 9,200 sow facility, and we're still trying to get the state to understand and accept 5,000 sow facilities. People still freak out over. There's some out there now, and that's helping. So 9,200 head to get that done was that was no small feat, but we didn't have the blow up. And Pipestone's got a couple folks that chase them around South Dakota, and just because of a fight that they had in a different area, which wasn't Pipestone's fault, it just happened to be the wrong person at the wrong place, and we never heard a peep from them because it was quiet. They scour looking for the articles in the local paper that says, neighbors concerned about 5,000 sow facility coming in, and boom, here they come. And it goes back to them telling the story. We had talked to the neighbors for about 2 miles around, it amounted to, and if they'd have knocked on their door, it would have been too late, because those people knew better and they wouldn't have fallen for it. Because we told them, expect these people to come. We'd even given them names. So that's my advice for how to try to deal with that. You kind of got to just head it off first, the best that you can, because man, once they get a foothold in Yankton County right now, South Dakota, a few different local producers went in at the same time to get some 2,400 head barns permitted, and man, the top blew off. And those same activists are there. They've got the group so scared out of their mind, and you know, it's always quality of life for, you name the county, and they get their shirts, and they got their website and their Facebook page, and they got the attorney to come in, and now that county's been tied up in court for, that's right at a year now. There's not a single barn's been built yet. We're going to get there, but those are the things we're trying to avoid by getting in advance and not having that little flare-up that the professionals catch wind of, because then you got a real disaster. Yes?
I have 2 questions for you. The first, you said, county by, you see differences county by county.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see any of your counties coming up and kind of putting up a metaphorical not open to the activists sign? They've clearly sent a signal that they are pro-agriculture and pro-livestock agriculture, and does that work? And then the second thing second question I had is, you talked about the different provisions that this dairy farm put into place, and, we found that you make a couple concessions, and then you go back and they're happy for just a little bit, and then they're asking for more, and that goalpost constantly moving of when they're going to say, yeah, you did a good job, thank you, and
Yep.
walk away. Have you seen those goalposts moving, and when do you say enough is enough on that?
Good points and questions. First, basically, I think the way that the counties, it hasn't been essentially a sign of, you know what, folks, we're for agriculture, don't even bother. It usually takes a permit hearing for the commission to have the strength and the conviction to say, wait a minute, first of all, you don't even belong here. Second of all, you're full of it, and get them chased out. They don't come back after that. I helped a family with 2 hog barns getting permitted here a month and a half, 2 months ago, and there was a couple neighbors came in, a mile and a half away, property value in the stank. We moved out to our acreage. That's our little slice of heaven. You're going to destroy it thing. And I was answering the questions, dealing with it, and we had some back and forth, and it was at least staying calm and civil, I would say. And eventually the chairman of the commission, I went to answer the latest nonsense, and he turned and looked at him. He said, hey, I got this one. Boy, you got after him. Like, you can take the next one, too. That was great. Made my job a lot easier. So I don't think that guy will be back. He knows where the commission stands, but we need more commissions like that. On goalpost moving, that does happen, and I think it comes down to anticipating that too. The dairy example I gave, the one family, we were talking for a second or third time, and all of a sudden the husband said, well, it's fine and dandy, you're not going to let the price go down, but you're guaranteeing it won't go up either. And you know that these acreages appreciate. You can't not give us more. Like, oh, come on. I said, okay. They probably do generally appreciate. Is it guaranteed? Well, no, it's not guaranteed, but they do. And I said, okay, that's fair. I said, by what amount? Is it 5%? Is it 10%? 50%? 2%? What's the number? Well, I don't know. And I said, the thing that I would just remind you is the dairy doesn't have to offer you anything. I'm trying to be a good neighbor, understand your concerns, trying to find a solution. Is there some discussion of maybe a little premium or something? They could if they wanted to, but I just had to remind them they don't have to offer you anything. And we still would have been in a position if he'd have just said that's not good enough and come in and tried to cause problems. We'd have still been in a good enough position to say to all the other reasonable people in the room, well, here's what we offered them, but that didn't get us anywhere either. And so, yeah, I mean, you're right. It happens a lot, and it's just trying to go into it in a way that you kind of preset that expectation and then not be afraid to remind them when there's a limit. You bet.
1 more minute. If you have
I can't answer a question in 1 minute. Yes, sir.
How do you set your fees when you go in on the project?
How do I set them? Normally what we've done, it depends on the project, but let's say with a dairy, what we've done there is we'll do a set commission that's based on success. Our goal is our success is based on your success. We're not just looking to milk somebody for fees. We don't charge by the hour. So we agree to a commission. Usually, like say on a dairy especially, it's a longer term project. We'll do, say, a 1-year deal on a small retainer that's a monthly to just kind of keep covering expenses, because Lord knows it takes a ton of time. And then we get the permit, we get it through, there's no lawsuits, you're ready to build. Then we get the commission and we deduct off any of the retainers. Hog barns, we just flat fee for going through it. Some are easy and some are a nightmare. Well, I shouldn't say that. We haven't had any nightmares yet. Fingers crossed.
In the process, do you get anybody just throwing up the flag and saying, hey, I know you're just trying to edge me out, squeeze me out, and take over my house property and whatever? I mean, if you've been effective and communicating with the neighbors, do they end up still feeling like they've been a little bit pushed over?
So far, so good. We'll find some that you're just not going to be able to work with. Then the goal is you get back to the one example I gave earlier of just getting them to just accept it. And again, making sure you're in a position that when you go into the permit hearing, that if they do come in and fly off the handle, they're the ones that'll look ridiculous because you've done everything you can. It's pretty rare you're going to have a commission or even the rest of the room, frankly, that's going to hold it against you when you can show that you really tried everything to work with them. And in that case, if they lose credibility, usually what will happen there is they'll find out they're a minority in the room, and that'll calm it down. The only time it really gets ugly is when there's the whole group there with the same shirt on and they're all clapping for each other every time one speaks.
All right, great discussion. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.